So I want you to picture a humanoid robot in your mind right now. Just, whatever pops up first.
I'm guessing most people are picturing, like, a pristine, sleek white machine doing a perfectly choreographed backflip on a stage somewhere in Silicon Valley.
Right, exactly. Or maybe it's delicately picking up an apple in this totally silent, spotless laboratory.
The classic tech demo.
Yeah, but I want you to erase that image entirely. Just wipe it. Instead, picture that exact same robot, but it's 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You're standing in the freezing rain on a tarmac at Haneda Airport. It is deafeningly loud. And this robot is hauling heavy, awkwardly shaped luggage into the belly of a Japan Airlines jet.
Surrounded by rushing vehicles and a deeply exhausted human crew.
Exactly. Welcome to the week where technology basically stopped living quietly in your web browser and started getting highly, violently physical.
It really is a profound shift. I mean, for the past few years, the tech industry has felt incredibly abstract,
Right, very weightless.
Exactly. It was all about software updates, slightly faster chatbots, large language models that lived entirely on a server somewhere. But the source material we are diving into today completely shatters that illusion.
It really does. So today we are looking at the premiere edition of a highly anticipated newsletter and blog called Silicon Drama.
Specifically, episode 01.
Right, which is titled The Week Technology Started to Feel Physical. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why the old debate of, who has the smartest chatbot is suddenly just entirely irrelevant.
Because the people running these companies are no longer just building software products.
Right. They are racing to build the physical infrastructure of the next world.
And, that infrastructure basically starts with the body. You brought up Haneda Airport earlier, which is just the perfect entry point for this.
It's such a wild visual.
It is. According to the Silicon Drama piece, Japan Airlines and GMO AI and robotics are prepping this massive humanoid robot experiment scheduled for May 2026.
And they aren't just like putting these robots at the terminal entrance to wave at tourists.
No, not at all. They are dropping them directly into ground handling operations. So baggage loading, cargo transport, cabin cleaning.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to me, this is the ultimate litmus test.
Yeah.
I look at this exactly like the evolution of self-driving cars.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, like watching a robot do a viral dance on YouTube is basically like watching a self-driving car navigate a completely empty parking lot on a sunny Tuesday.
It's a neat trick, but it's not reality.
Exactly. But an airport is just a blizzard of variables. It's crowded, it's governed by rigid safety regulations, and things are, constantly going wrong.
Yeah, if a flight is delayed and luggage needs to be rerouted in 3 minutes, a fixed conveyor belt just can't adapt to that.
Right. So what's fascinating here is...
Well, what's fascinating here is that the source points out conventional fixed automation simply cannot handle the spatial limitations of an active tarmac.
They need that flexibility.
Exactly. The aviation industry relies heavily on human manual labor precisely because humans can, walk around a fuel hose, duck under a wing, lift a strangely shaped snowboard bag.
Which a Roomba definitely cannot do.
Right, exactly. So the goal of a humanoid robot is to slip seamlessly into a world that was already built for the human form factor.
Oh, that makes sense. You don't have to rebuild the airport.
Exactly, you just replace the worker. But to survive that chaotic environment, these machines need an incomprehensible amount of real-world data.
And that actually brings us to the numbers from Figure AI, which I have to admit made me stop and reread the page, like twice.
The production numbers?
Yeah. They are pushing from prototype to mass production at their BotQ facility. They delivered over 350 of their Figure 03 robots. But here is the wild part.
The scaling.
Yes. They scaled their production from 1 robot per day to 1 robot per hour. That is a 24x throughput improvement in under 120 days.
It's an aggressive timeline.
Let me just express some heavy skepticism here. How is that even physically possible? I mean, when you were building a piece of hardware with thousands of moving parts, actuators, sensors, joints...
Yeah, it sounds impossible.
Going 24x in 4 months sounds like an absolute quality control nightmare. So why the insane rush?
Well, you're right to be skeptical because hardware is notoriously unforgiving. But they're rushing because of the underlying mechanism of how robots actually learn.
Okay.
It's what the industry calls the data flywheel. So think about how a robot learns to lift a heavy, awkwardly weighted suitcase.
You can't just code that, right?
Exactly. A programmer doesn't sit down and write 1,000 lines of code detailing the exact physics of a suitcase. That's literally impossible. Instead, they use a method called teleoperation,
Wait, meaning a human is controlling it?
Exactly. A human operator literally straps on a VR headset and haptic gloves and puppets the robot's mechanical arms to do the task hundreds of
Oh,
times.
well, like an avatar.
Yeah. The AI's neural network watches the cameras, measures the torque on the joints, and eventually internalizes the pattern. It learns by watching.
So it's building muscle memory, basically.
Precisely. But to get an AI to generalize so it doesn't just know how to lift one specific red suitcase, but any suitcase, you need millions of hours of data.
Ah, so that's why you need to build one robot an hour.
Right. Because 350 robots deployed in the world means you have 350 pairs of hands gathering that vital training data simultaneously.
More robots mean more data.
Exactly. More data means the AI gets smarter. The smarter it gets, the more useful it is, which then funds the production of even more robots.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The body is basically just a vacuum to suck up data for the brain.
That's a great way to put it.
Which explains Meta's latest move, actually. They just acquired a San Diego startup called Assured Robot Intelligence.
Or ARI.
Right. And Meta didn't buy them because they want to manufacture, like, titanium arms. They bought them because ARI specializes in the intelligence layer.
The brain.
Yeah, helping robots understand, predict, and dynamically adapt to human behavior in complex environments.
The silicon drama piece puts it really bluntly, actually. A mechanical humanoid without intelligence is just expensive theater.
Right, it's a parlor trick.
But a humanoid with spatial intelligence suddenly becomes physical labor. It becomes logistics. And that is why we are seeing this transition. The mechanical engineering problem is mostly solved.
The hardware is there.
Yeah, the software, the brain is the final bottleneck.
Now, when you realize that AI is transitioning from, a fun web app into the backbone of global physical logistics, the stakes instantly go from millions of dollars to trillions.
Completely.
And when the stakes get that high, the technology inevitably gets pulled into the orbit of national security. Which takes us to the second major theme in the sources.
Right, the move to defense.
Exactly. The AI brains are moving out of the public sphere and into highly structured, classified military environments.
It is a stark pivot. The Pentagon recently finalized agreements with almost all the major players. We're talking Google, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, NVIDIA, OpenAI, and SpaceX.
That's a heavy-hitting lineup.
It is. The stated goal is to integrate these frontier AI capabilities into classified computer networks to augment decision-making in complex operational environments.
Basically putting the most advanced tech into the war room.
Exactly.
But what really grabbed my attention in the Silicon Drama Report wasn't who signed the contract, but who was conspicuously absent.
Anthropic.
Yes, Anthropic. They have spent years meticulously building their brand as, the careful, highly principled, safety-focused AI lab.
Very heavily marketed that way.
Right. And they apparently walked away, or were maybe left out, due to disputes with the U.S. government over the ethics of using AI in warfare.
It's a huge dividing line.
So here's where it gets really interesting. I have to ask, if Anthropic stands on its principles but loses a massive defense contract, does this basically prove that AI ethics are really just a luxury of the consumer market?
This raises an important question, and it's the exact underlying tension the source material exposes.
Because it feels like a reality check.
It is. When technology is just a tool for, say, writing marketing emails, safety guidelines and ethical boundaries are great PR. They make consumers feel secure.
Sure.
But the military doesn't operate in the consumer market. It operates in sovereign defense. If a military commander needs an AI to analyze satellite imagery to identify enemy armor...
You don't want it hesitating.
Exactly. An AI model that pauses to debate the ethical implications of target acquisition is a fatal liability. Once AI becomes sovereign infrastructure, hard-coded safety limits can become strategic vulnerabilities.
That is wild to think about.
The Pentagon needs providers who will adapt to their operational reality. And OpenAI clearly decided they want to be inside that room.
And OpenAI is moving aggressively. They just rolled out GPT 5.5, which is geared toward deep professional work in coding.
Right.
But alongside it, Sam Altman announced a specialized variant, GPT 5.5 Cyber.
Built explicitly for critical cyber defenders.
Right, securing national infrastructure. But let me play devil's advocate here for a second, because if you're listening to this, you probably grew up with the same foundational myth of the internet that I did.
The whole hacker ethos.
Yeah. We were told the internet was the ultimate equalizer. It democratizes tools. A kid in a garage has access to the same search engine as a Fortune 500 CEO.
That was the dream.
But if the most powerful frontier AI models are now going to be specialized, restricted, and locked behind classified defense networks, are we basically watching the death of the democratized tech dream for the everyday user?
It's a sobering thought, and it's exactly what the industry is wrestling with right now. The era of pure democratization might be over at the absolute frontier of technology.
Wow.
What the Silicon Drama piece argues is that AI companies are no longer just selling raw intelligence. Intelligence is becoming a commodity.
Anyone can spin up an open source model soon enough.
Exactly. What they are actually selling now is trust. And trust operates very differently than software.
And trust feels incredibly fragile right now, especially among developers.
Extremely fragile. Just look at the massive backlash Anthropic faced recently with their Claude code bug.
Oh man, that was a mess.
It really was. This was a tool deeply integrated into developers' workflows. And suddenly, developers started complaining that the AI was getting noticeably worse at coding.
Just out of nowhere.
Right. Anthropic eventually published a postmortem explaining it was a technical bug. They had introduced an instruction to reduce the AI's verbosity, and it inadvertently degraded the model's logic capabilities.
But the reaction from the developer community wasn't just, oh, okay, it's a software bug, patch it and move on.
Oh, not at all.
The source says they were furious. They felt gaslit.
Because you have to understand how a developer experiences this. When you use a frontier model every single day to write code, it becomes an extension of your own brain.
Yeah, you rely on it completely.
If you're a developer listening to this, you know exactly what I mean. When the model silently degrades, you don't get an error message. You just start second-guessing yourself.
You wonder if your prompts are wrong or if you're losing your edge.
Exactly. As the author of the piece notes, model quality isn't an abstract benchmark. It is a workplace issue. When trust is broken at that intimate level, it takes far more than a bug fix to repair it.
Okay, so if we pull back and look at the board here, we have models making life or death decisions in classified networks, and we have models acting as the core cognitive engine for developers worldwide.
The concentration of power is staggering.
It's almost unfathomable. And human history basically tells us that when stakes get that high, the people who hold the keys suddenly want absolute, unquestioned control over the narrative.
Oh, absolutely.
Which explains exactly why Elon Musk and Sam Altman are currently tearing each other apart in a federal courtroom.
The trial in Oakland. It is the ultimate collision of high-minded mythology and bitter reality.
It's basically the ultimate Silicon Valley soap opera at this point.
It really is. Elon Musk testified for more than 7 hours over 3 days. The crux of his lawsuit is that OpenAI, Sam Altman, and Greg Brockman fundamentally betrayed the original nonprofit charitable mission of the company.
Right. Musk claims they abandoned humanity for a profit-driven structure.
While OpenAI's defense is that Musk simply couldn't stand losing control of the company and is using the courts to kneecap a competitor since he's now running his own AI firm, xAI.
The details from the courtroom are endlessly fascinating. Like I said, it feels less like a corporate dispute and more like a messy custody battle over a trillion-dollar baby.
It's deeply personal.
Yeah. They are digging up ancient emails from 2015 and 2018. This is one specific email from August 2018 that the source highlights, where Sam Altman explicitly wrote to Musk saying he wouldn't take equity in OpenAI because he wasn't, quote, doing it for the money.
Yeah.
The sheer irony of reading that email out loud in 2026, when OpenAI is one of the most highly valued corporate structures on Earth, is just staggering.
The author of the newsletter aptly calls that email a time capsule. It's an artifact from a vastly more idealistic era of the AI industry.
When they were just a humble research lab.
Right. And frankly, that idealism is what's truly on trial here. This isn't just about breach of contract. It is a battle for authorship.
Who gets the credit?
Exactly. Who gets to write the history books? Who birthed the AI age? Who saved it and who betrayed it? Nobody gets everything they want, which is what makes the industry split so tense.
And the contrast between the grand, world-saving mythology of AI and the pretty petty reality of the courtroom is jarring.
Extremely.
You have U.S. District Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers presiding over this. She had to repeatedly warn Elon Musk about his behavior outside the courtroom.
Right, his posts on X.
Yeah, him jumping on X to mock Altman's name and accuse him of stealing from a charity. There was even this highly publicized moment where Musk got frustrated and accused OpenAI's attorney of asking a leading question.
Oh, I read about this.
The judge literally forced Musk to repeat the phrase, "I'm not a lawyer," and the entire courtroom just burst out laughing.
It entirely strips away the Silicon Valley mystique. We are so used to experiencing this technology through sleek keynote presentations and polished press releases.
The Steve Jobs-style reality distortion field.
Exactly. But under harsh fluorescent courtroom lights, you see that the AI revolution wasn't handed down by gods. It was built by people with massive egos, deep insecurities, and vicious private disputes.
It's all very human.
The industry is fracturing under the weight of its own success. You now have consumer AI, defense AI, and courtroom AI. Musk wants his status as the savior reinstated. Altman wants his corporate empire protected. It's a stalemate.
But here's the massive blind spot. While the founders are trapped in a courtroom squabbling over who did what in 2018, the real power grab is happening entirely beneath them, at the foundational layer.
Well, hardware.
Yes, we are talking about chips and geopolitics.
Right.
Now, NVIDIA is obviously still the king of the mountain. They have the silicon, they have the developer ecosystem, they are the default.
Unquestionably.
But Silicon Drama makes a brilliant point here. Kings don't just have to worry about the barbarians outside the gate. They have to worry about the deeply ambitious allies inside the castle.
And those allies are the hyperscalers, specifically Google and Amazon.
Right.
For anyone who isn't steeped in the terminology, a hyperscaler is a massive cloud computing provider. They own the football field-sized data centers that actually run the internet.
Physical buildings.
Yes. Historically, they've been NVIDIA's biggest and most reliable customers, buying chips by the hundreds of thousands. But they are aggressively trying to break that dependency.
So let's break down exactly how they're doing it. The report notes that Google's cloud revenue just grew 63% to a staggering $20 billion run rate, driven largely by their TPU chips.
Huge numbers.
And Amazon's own Trainium chips grew nearly 40% quarter over quarter.
Hold on. For anyone listening who isn't a hardware engineer, what actually makes a Google TPU or an Amazon Trainium chip different from the NVIDIA chips we always hear about?
It's a great question.
Why does this matter so much?
It comes down to specialization. An NVIDIA GPU, a graphics processing unit, is like a brilliant, incredibly versatile Swiss Army knife. It was originally designed to render video games, but it turns out it's also great at AI.
Right. It can do a bit of everything. Exactly. But a TPU, a tensor processing unit, is an ASIC, an application-specific integrated circuit.
Okay.
It is not a Swiss Army knife. It is a surgical scalpel designed to do one thing and one thing only, which is the massive, repetitive matrix multiplication that neural networks require.
So it's purpose-built.
Because it only does one thing, it can theoretically do it faster and far more power efficiently.
Yeah.
Google and Amazon realized that if they design these custom chips themselves, they don't have to pay NVIDIA's massive profit margins.
Okay, so this is a corporate margin war.
Yeah.
But does this actually benefit you and me?
Oh.
I mean, if Google successfully breaks free from NVIDIA and runs its data centers on its own TPUs, does the end user actually see a difference? Or is this just billionaires fighting over who gets to keep the extra 20%?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's all about vertical integration. When a company controls the entire stack, from the silicon chip in the server, to the cloud infrastructure, to the AI model, all the way up to the app on your phone, they control the ecosystem entirely.
Oh, wow. They don't want to depend on anyone beneath them.
Exactly. Breaking NVIDIA's monopoly might theoretically lower internal costs, which could trickle down to cheaper access for developers and maybe cheaper services for users. But make no mistake, the end goal isn't altruism, it's leverage.
Right.
They are racing to decide who gets to set the fundamental price of intelligence itself.
And it is no longer just a corporate race. Governments are drawing lines in the sand. Look at what just happened between Meta and China.
The Manus deal.
Yeah. Meta tried to acquire an AI startup called Manus for over $2 billion. And Manus doesn't manufacture chips. They don't build hardware. They build AI agents.
Right.
But the Chinese government explicitly ordered Meta to unwind the acquisition.
Which tells us exactly how sovereign nations view the future of the internet. We need to clarify what an AI agent actually is, because it's very different from a chatbot.
Yeah, what's the distinction there?
If you ask a chatbot to write a recipe, it outputs text on a screen. That's a chatbot. But an agent is like a digital intern. You don't just ask an intern a question, you give them an objective. You say, log into my email, find the canceled flight, book me a new one on a different airline, text my family my new arrival time, and file the expense report.
And it actually does all of that.
The agent actually clicks the buttons and executes the workflow across multiple platforms, yes.
So an agent essentially sits between the human user and the rest of the internet.
Exactly. The agent becomes the new operating system. Whoever controls the best AI agent controls how users interact with commerce, search, and communication.
That's immense power.
It is. When a $2 billion deal for software agents becomes politically sensitive enough that a foreign government intervenes to kill it, the message is undeniable. AI agents are not just a cool startup feature anymore.
They are strategic territory.
Exactly, sovereign territory.
Ugh.
Governments are realizing that letting a foreign tech giant own the interface that controls daily logistics is a national security risk.
It's a complete paradigm shift. The cloud providers want to build the chips. The AI labs want to build the physical robots. The platforms want to own the digital agents. And the governments want veto power over all of it.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of this deep dive. The overarching theme from this first episode of Silicon Drama isn't any single headline. It's the trajectory.
Where it's all heading.
Right. We're watching the convergence of four distinct pillars. You have robotics, serving as the physical body. You have AI serving as the cognitive brain. You have massive custom compute serving as the circulatory system. And you have big tech managing the global distribution.
That's the whole organism.
When you combine those four things, you don't just have a new software product category to invest in. You are witnessing the formation of a massive, unprecedented global power structure.
The machines are no longer waiting politely at the edge of the story, hidden inside a browser tab. They are walking right into the room. We've got the visionary founders bitterly battling over the historical record in federal court. We have the most powerful cognitive models being locked behind classified military doors. And we have humanoid robots standing in the freezing rain, reaching out to do heavy physical labor on an airport tarmac.
The physical frontier is here.
It really is.
Yeah.
So as you go about your week, as you use your apps, read the news, or just navigate your own physical world, what should you chew on this one final thought? When the infrastructure of the next world starts running entirely on autonomous machines, from the airport floor to the global defense grid, who will actually still be holding the off switch?
That is the question.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the physical frontier. The next massive power struggle is already forming, and we'll be here to unpack it with you.